is going on? NBA best ball season is here. I'm super pumped to start getting these NBA streams going. Started drafting a little bit this week already. Certainly don't feel like an expert, but I think there's a lot of fun strategies, player takes. I don't think anyone, we got to the end of NFL best ball season, and I feel like there's so much content, so much information, data, everything out there on NFL best ball drafts that the market was pretty efficient and pretty sharp in general, even maybe on the sites like we've talked about in the past that weren't quite to the level of, say, Underdog in terms of efficiency. However, in NBA, it's a little bit smaller sport in terms of popularity. There's a few less of the mega mind sharps out here grinding these NBA best ball drafts. And even then, I think we're so early, we're a month away from the season starting, and we're so early in, just the NBA best ball space in general that like the market just has not figured everything out yet. We absolutely no one really knows what even the right roster constructions are, right? Some of the principles that we use in NFL, some might apply to NBA and some definitely don't apply. And the differences in the scoring, the differences in, just the nuance of a longer season, player rest, all that kind of stuff is so new to the best ball space that I'm excited to really start to fire at these drafts and kind of start to figure out some of this strategy and figure out maybe where our edges lie. I have a few ideas, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it a little bit today. But let's go ahead and hop in. These don't fill, super duper fast compared to like NFL. So waiting for 6 people. So we'll see. We'll see how quick we can fill this baby. Need 6 more. $5 small ball 2. Sorry, great radio, right? Listening to me type out my tweets. We'll see how quick we can fill this thing. I'll put this in the Discord too. Need 6 more. 4. See if we can fill this. Drafting an NBA team in the early NFL season should be interesting. You hop on the stream and you're like, oh, please let it be like 10 of 11, 10 of 12, or 11 of 12 already, because you don't want to sit here and try to fill the time waiting for it to fill, especially with NBA. You never know exactly how quickly it's going to fill, but looks like we're getting there pretty quickly. Just need 1 more. The most fascinating thing to me, there's a difference certainly in the NFL drafts by site, whether it be 20 rounds versus 18 rounds, half PPR versus full PPR. It looks like we're filled. Sweet. That was quick. 102. Love it. I love a top 3 pick personally. It's actually oddly similar to NFL for me, where I think there's a fairly clear top 3. I then in the middle, I kind of don't like it. So I prefer to be, at the ends, at the beginning of the first round or the end of the first round. At least so far, that's how I feel. The interesting thing about Underdog is just how different it is from DraftKings scoring. Because there's differences in football, half PPR, full PPR, and those are fairly distinct differences in like the bonuses on DraftKings and stuff, but it's not that different. I actually feel like NBA is quite a bit different. Like you're getting a full extra point for a steal or a block which is pretty significant and change. It makes up a higher percentage of. So Jokic and Giannis are my top two guys. Love Luka. Have nothing negative to say about Luka, but I think the positional advantages that you get at the wing and big position with those two guys. Harden goes third. Interesting. I think are pretty significant. As well as on Underdog, the scoring. Love Luka, but he's a really high turnover player and not a big steal and block player. So it's just a slight ding. We're splitting hairs, cutting ties on those guys. But I think, the positional edge, we'll get into it, I'm sure, as the draft season goes on, but wing is, the weakest position in terms of both depth and, depth and quality, both at quality at the top and depth. The later round guys at the wing position are not quite as strong as maybe the other two positions. And so Giannis being a wing and not a big is it's almost like a cheat code, right? I'm not calling it CMC level cheat code like in NFL, but it's not that far off. Yeah, Underdog scoring is very different. Steals and blocks, I agree. I think it's one thing that maybe the market doesn't, those are obviously difficult stats to predict and project. Like you say, Mark, they're volatile stats. However, we do have guys that are more apt to, accumulate steals and blocks than others, right? Duncan Robinson is not going to be a big steals and blocks player, right? Like that's just not going to happen. And there are going to be other guys. Rookie Scotty Barnes projects to be a fairly significant steals and blocks player. And so when you're splitting, I'm not saying you're deciding 1v1 between those two guys, but when you're looking for some upside later in drafts, I think the steals and blocks are actually a fairly big deal on Underdog, whereas on DraftKings, it's maybe not quite as big of a deal because they're only 2 points and, 3-pointers are a half point. You get double bonuses. Some of those things start to become more of a factor on DraftKings. A lot of guys are also categorized differently in terms of position. Site to between the two sites, which is interesting. And then obviously there's one less flex on Underdog. With there being one less flex, in my opinion, that opens us up for more fragile roster constructions. What we'll see, we'll probably see it in this draft. We'll see it in tons of drafts moving forward as we draft leading into the season starting. We'll see everybody is drafting like super, super balanced constructions, right? Basically, some form, if you go 6-6-3, and then you have one spot left, that 16th spot left to play with, and people kind of drop that in where they need to, or even go 6-6-4. I'm not even saying that that's wrong necessarily, because you can draft balanced teams in any format, and it can be okay. But I think an edge that exists is embracing a little more fragility at certain positions, whether it be if you take Jokic, maybe you only take 2 bigs. I certainly don't want more than 3 when I take Jokic, but some people will take Jokic and take 4 bigs. And I really want to, I want to use Jokic's score at my big position basically every week, even when they play lesser games in a week. I want to take advantage of the edge that Jokic provides. Same thing with Giannis at wing. I want to take advantage of the edge that Giannis provides. And I know he's filling one of those wing spots. So now I want to, maybe I'm going to wait on guard a little bit and I'm going to load up more volume at guard. Maybe I only have 4 wings. And I think people are very fearful of doing that in NBA, even more so than NFL. And I think that's something that we can take advantage of. Yeah, this is the same kind of thought process that I have, Nate, like taking some of these older guys early. Like if you want to take I don't really like taking on some of these older guys and not just older guys, but older guys on teams that we know are going to be good and we know are going to like rest players. I really, really struggle with that. I think it's something that I'm willing to take a stand against, and if it comes back to bite me, it comes back to bite me. But I would rather err on the side of, the youth and the upside of playing basically every game. Whereas I know that LeBron, AD, KD, right, Kyrie, those guys they're just going to miss games. Oh, let's see what we got here at the 210. LaMelo goes, huh? I'm gonna queue up a couple guys here. I'm gonna take Vooch. I'm pretty, Vooch is, certainly not a Jokic or an Embiid or anything like that. But I am very bullish on this Bulls offense. And I think even though DeRozan is there, Lonzo should help with facilitation. And I think that Vooch can just have some monster games where they're not going to be very good defensively, I don't think. And this works out because I really wanted either Jalen or Morant here would be my choice. I think I'm going to take Jalen again to give me this kind of early wing heavy. I really like early wing heavy. It sucks when you don't get Giannis, but I think there's a handful of different early wings that we can take, because in the mid tier at wing, I think we'll find I don't really love the mid tier at wing. I'm not even sure that the middle rounds of wing players are really any different, at least not in terms of upside, than the late round players. So I really like kind of barbelling the wing position about as much as I can. I mean, there's a few upside flyers in the middle rounds that I think are okay. But I really like barbelling the wing position. And, so now Giannis and Jalen, I just got those wing positions locked down, right? And Vooch has a center position locked down. So now, guard, how do I go about winning the flex, right? Well, I'm dominating wing in theory, and then I have my locked in center. So now I win guard with volume and sprinkle in the upside bets at the other positions, as they come to me. Whereas I think, like I was talking about, I think so many people are just going to draft straight balanced and not kind of think through, the roster construction around this, this premise that we talked about all during football season of like drafting as if you're right. Like if I'm right about Vooch and he's at top center, obviously Giannis being a top wing, and then, just smashing another upside and high floor in Jaylen Brown wing. Now, like I'm set up to take a bunch of shots at guard and then just sprinkle in the upside bets I want at wing and big moving forward throughout the draft. So, but like that goes the other way too. If you take guard, like if you take some guard, right? If you took LaMelo and Harden or something, that's also totally fine. But now you have, and you can take multiple, you can even take 3 or whatever. And that's now I've got the flex, I'm smashing the flex with those guards. I do think about the flex as a guard. For me, the flex is a guard and a big position. So that's why I do like jamming these, Giannis, Jalen, because now I can hammer guard with volume. If I want to take another big, I can take another big too, to win that flex. But I don't really have to worry about wing anymore, because like honestly, most of these additional wings as a third wing are not going to be, competing for my flex. It's kind of the same thing in football, where if you think about flex as a wide receiver position, for almost the entire draft, the wide receivers in almost every round score more points. And that's how it is with guard and big in NBA too. Basically, throughout the entire draft, guards and bigs score more points everywhere you're getting them, outside of Giannis probably. He's like the only example. And so if I think about it that way, then once I've got my 2 wing spots locked in with this type of team, I don't want to mess around with trying to get wings into the flex, because in every round from here on out, the wings are lower scoring players. So it's always a fun kind of thought experiment. It's also a fun thought experiment, like when you draft, like every draft that I've done, like even when people will take Giannis and Jalen, they're still hammering, 6 wings. And I kind of feel like you want to take a little more fragile approach, especially at wing if you have elites. Now, if you want to punt off wing, I think that's totally okay too, right? If you don't get Giannis and you don't get any of these top wings that you really love, it's totally fine. Load up on some smash, super high upside, super high floor guards and bigs early. And then, you know that you're losing points at wing, but in theory, you're also still winning the flex with your guards and bigs. And now you need to find the breakout wings, but you can do that with a high, maybe you only take 2 or 3 bigs, and now I'm taking 7 or 8 wings, and I'm just hoping to find that breakout, right? I'm hoping to find that 12th round guy that goes in the 3rd round next year, which is certainly not easy, but it is still kind of the goal, right? It's like if you don't get an elite tight end in NFL, yeah, it's unfortunate, but you got to take shots on finding the breakout guys. Same thing with quarterback too. If you didn't get one of the elites, that's why guys like we talked about Trey Lance and Justin Fields and such. Let's see what Sad Riffraff. Welcome back. Also, John, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. So I'm definitely taking DeJounte Murray. I am super, super, super bullish on him this season. I'm sure I will be doing some content specifically around DeJounte because he is I'm bullish on the Spurs in general. You remove DeMar DeRozan from this equation, and I'm not sure that here's another guy that I'm really bullish on. It's Joe Val. With the Spurs, though, when you remove DeMar DeRozan from the equation, I mean, that's the highest usage player on the Spurs. Maybe you would argue the Spurs aren't going to be quite as good. Probably true. But you have all these young guys now with this massive ceiling without DeMar. And so I'm just trying to – and they're not priced – DeJounte is priced reasonably, but I think he could break into – just a monster season. He also is an elite steals and blocks player, which is nice on Underdog. And then Joe Val is just a guy who I know he's now playing next to Zion, but he is a wildly productive point per minute player. Wildly productive. And I'm not sure that being next to Zion is even going to change that. I mean, he played next to Ja Morant and it didn't change that. I think all you need for Joe Val is minutes. And I think the Pels are trying to win. I'm not sure I agree with their decisions in terms of picking up Devontae Graham and picking up Joe Val and some of the moves that they made, but they're certainly trying to win. And I think Zion is, obviously a very high usage player, but I don't think that that's going to bury Joe Val. Like Joe Val is going to get his rebounds. He's going to get his points. He's going to get his offensive rebounds. I think it's conceivable that he ends up playing really well off of Zion. Whether, they like you can see some fun things, I think, with Zion this year. Running the offense, being the facilitator. I mean, imagine somebody trying to guard Zion on the perimeter in like a 2-man in a pick and roll with Joe Val, and I think Joe Val is probably a little bit underpriced. Yeah, your early picks determine how you fill the rest of the roster and not so much a balanced approach. Yeah, and it's not that there will be drafts where you do have a balanced approach, right? If the best pick in the first 3 rounds is one guard, 1 wing, 1 big, next round is a guard, next round is a big, whatever, you may end up being a little more balanced because that's how your first picks dictated that you need to be a little bit more balanced. But you can push it kind of like I did here to where I want to lock down those wing spots, and then I'm going to be a little less balanced. Whereas everyone else is drafting balanced. And so when everyone else drafts balanced and you go a little bit more fragile, yes, it's more fragile. If Giannis or Jaylen Brown gets hurt, I'm in trouble because I don't have the depth at wing. But also if Giannis or Jaylen Brown get hurt for an extended period of time, I was screwed anyway. Those guys aren't making up for my first round pick going down. Whoever I draft in the 13th round is not replicating Giannis's performance. And that's also why you then match the types of players you're drafting with, right? I take Giannis. I'm not then taking, like I mean, Duncan Robinson's always this example that keeps popping up. Like I'm not taking Duncan Robinson as a wing with Giannis. I want these upside bets, probably young guys, maybe in uncertain situations, rookies, those kinds of things. I think, having done so much of the football stuff, I just think some of those little things, and you don't even have to, it's not like you have to take it super crazy. You know what I mean? I'm not drafting only 2 wings. Like I'm not doing anything stupid, but we can push the limits of these roster constructions. I think people are far too worried about, I need the depth to make it through the season, instead of what happens if I just literally use Giannis' score basically every week at a wing, or what happens if I use Giannis and Jaylen's score basically every single week? Well, that gives me a huge advantage. It gives me a huge advantage to then take that and parlay it into being able to win the other positions. Let's see here, up in 2 picks. There's some fun guys here. If you drafted it all on DraftKings, you saw when I took Murray, Jalen Green is priced right around Murray, which is not the case on DraftKings. So these 2 bigs I'm particularly interested in. I have a little more Jared Allen already so far, and I'm going to take Jaren Jackson. I like both of these guys as upside bets at big. And then, like I said, I also like now having 2 kind of stud bigs, in theory, stud bigs, or 3 stud bigs, excuse me. I don't have to, I'm not going to draft another big. And now, those guys are competing for my flex spot. And now it's just about to be guard city, right? And there's a couple here that I like that I'm sitting on. And I have this weird personal relationship with these later round bigs. Like I fall in love with them sometimes, when in reality, they never end up being, it's like the late round tight end. Like you fall in love with the late round tight end. So I'm taking Jalen Suggs. I really love Suggs. Again, also he's a low key underrated guy for steals and blocks. I think he's going to be a pretty elite steals and blocks player for a guard. It's kind of like what this whole roster is. I guess Vooch isn't necessarily as much, but kind of, elite steals and blocks player for a guard. And, I like Darius Garland. Rozier is fine. Sexton is fine. I like some of these guards in this range, but I'm just super, super bullish on guys like Suggs, like upside wise in these drafts, because they're kind of priced in, we don't know where to price them, right? We don't know where to price them exactly, especially with the Magic. The Magic are such an awkward situation. They have all these bodies, all these young guys, especially all these young guards. But I just think a player like Jalen Suggs is kind of, he rises above all these guys. And they also, I guess maybe there's somebody was asking in Discord yesterday that is there concern, around teams like tanking and shutting it down at the end of the season. And that's, I guess, potentially a concern for Orlando. But I think as it relate, like, you also want Suggs to get experience. So it's risk reward, I guess I would say. Yeah, I love the Clippers. The Clippers are a little bit of a tricky one because they do have a bunch of dudes. I like Reggie Jackson. Bledsoe is actually kind of interesting to me. I love PG in the second round. The bigs are a little hairy. Just because Kawhi is out, but they're not lacking for bodies, right? Terrence Mann is going to play. They brought Batum back, right? They have everybody else still from like the playoff run. And so it's I don't know how much true upside. I can't, like, they're a little bit more, to me, the ancillary guys are fine, but then like kind of contingent bets, like your Terrence Manns and Reggie Jacksons are fine at their price, but you're betting on, okay, PG resting, PG missing games for injury or whatever, which I do like. I do really like those kind. The last year, some of my better teams had Dennis Schroeder, had some Lakers, had Pacers, guys who, maybe like from a median projection standpoint, don't project like from a total season long all that well, but they benefit really highly when somebody goes down, right? Dennis Schroeder was a so-so pick, but when LeBron and AD are missing time, he's the highest usage player on the Lakers, and certainly, way underpriced. Malcolm Brogdon, that's what happened to Domantas Sabonis. That's what happens to some of these guys. And some of it's unpredictable, right? Some of it's unpredictable, but that's also a good reason to like take productive players. Taking, again, I'll stop using Duncan Robinson. I really like Duncan Robinson. He's a great podcast, by the way. But, drafting Duncan Robinson, he has no contingent value. Like, it doesn't matter if Jimmy Butler, Bam, Kyle Lowry go down. He's not gaining any value. But like Winky says, like if there's already contingent value in the fact that Kawhi's missing time. Now, oh God, of course, there goes Duncan Robinson. If PG then goes down too, right? Or if Reggie Jackson goes down and you have Eric Bledsoe or you have Terrence Mann, those guys do become more valuable players. So just kind of always thinking through that part of it is something I'm doing throughout my drafts. I do hate this section of the draft. It's really brutal. Wall is such a fascinating case. I really fear that Wall is just going to do nothing. Like literally sit the whole year. I have. So here's where I'm going to try to take a contingent bet. I think on Schroeder. I don't actually really like Dennis Schroeder, but I have Jalen, and so it's like kind of that contingent upside, right? If something happens to Marcus Smart, if something happens to Jason Tatum, I have kind of a correlated bet there. And then a guy that I'm definitely very much on is Dylan Brooks. Same thing. Also have Jaren Jackson. And JoVal being gone is a big deal. JoVal is not only just a high usage player, he's a high, he's a big rebounder. He's a, stat accumulator. And so, again, just kind of correlating a little bit between those guys. I mostly feel I've been working on some side rankings that I do have here, and I'm going to get those up on the site ASAP. I'm working on getting some rankings up. So I'll be kind of drafting off of that. But so it's a little combination of feel and some initial rankings that I have up. Yeah, Hero is an interesting one. I think he's kind of meh from a median perspective. Like with Lowry in there, they brought back Duncan Robinson. Obviously, they have Jimmy Butler. They brought in PJ Tucker. So like, it's tough. It's going to be really tough. None is gone, but it's going to be really tough for Hero to carve out like a truly significant fantasy role with all those guys. But like the Heat are going to rest guys. Lowry and Jimmy and PJ are going to rest. That's just absolutely going to happen. And then, what if Jimmy Butler misses time? Hero gets a significant boost. So I do like that. I would really prefer a little bit more standalone value, but I agree. Yeah, I think it's not even just injured players, but it's just this combination of all these. Everybody has upside for various reasons, right? Like, previously injured, right? People have uncertainty around Jonathan Isaac, but coming back, he could be an absolute monster again, especially on Underdog with steals and blocks. Just young players. I really like to draft like kind of young players in uncertain situations, especially once we get kind of now 10th through the 16th round or something like that. Because like they're the ones with upside because of the uncertainty, right? Everybody like you click like there's no uncertainty around Duncan Robinson. There's no uncertainty around Tim Hardaway. There's no uncertainty around Bojan Bogdanovic. But and maybe their floor is a little bit better. But like if you need their floor, right? If I need their floor with who I've already drafted, like I feel like that's probably not going to end up being a good thing for me because they don't have the ceiling to really win me weeks either. So you don't want to draft zero. Like I don't want zero floor, but I do want like I want to be thinking about the upside and the payoff a lot more. It is definitely such an interesting point. Clarkson is another guy that's interesting. Like, if Mitchell goes down, Clarkson has a little bit of floor, and then if Mitchell or Conley goes down, he gets a boost. And there goes Clarkson. Robert Covington is an interesting guy. I think at the wing position doesn't have like the contingent value and stuff, but he does have some weak winning upside just because he'll have those games, right? Especially with steals and blocks. Again, like he'll have those 3 steal floor block games and then he makes 6 threes and he'll do that. He could do that a couple times in a week. And next thing you know, you are using his score. So he's a fascinating guy for me. I also just like Rocco. So I'll admit to a little bit of bias on him. There's Hero. Can't talk about guys on streams unless that's you, Nate, that took him. And there goes Reggie Jackson. Guys are taking the guards that I like here. Tim Hardaway. You see, like you just see some of the names that get taken in these rounds. It's like it happens to me too. Sometimes you fall into a little bit of a trap looking at the ADP and kind of being like not like it's not like we've done like a million of these drafts, right? So speaking of the Clippers, I know everybody hates Eric Bledsoe. But like Winky said, no Kawhi, and like it's not that he's not like a fairly productive fantasy player. I think there's a little bit of upside in Bledsoe this season. Could certainly be wrong, but that's kind of my stance. This is one thing I will say. I don't feel like this ADP is efficient at all, especially in later rounds. So I wouldn't feel bad. I'm probably gonna be reaching to get some guys that I want and like here for the rest of the way. Like an upside rookie there that I like in Scotty Barnes. Give me my third wing. I don't think this ADP is efficient at all right now. Again, in these later rounds, 10 plus. And so it's like all these veterans, right? Like kind of low upside veterans, right? Or even like Sadiq Bey is a fine player. I actually think he's like a really useful real life player. I don't know that the 3-and-D wings have a ton of upside, right? Lauri Markkanen on the Cavs, like where I don't see where the upside comes from. Like I kind of like Rocco, but like Steven Adams, I don't see where the upside comes from. Right? Even Rui, with all the guys that they have there now, I don't know that I see the upside with Rui. Definitely not with Fournier. Herder, the same thing. Like I don't see it with some of these guys. So I'm okay reaching a little bit for like some, typically for me, like younger guys, or if you have just kind of upside bets on guys that you like here, right? Maybe like I do actually like Kelly Olynyk, Wendell Carter. I'm tapped out at big, but I like some of these guys as upside plays, and it's also just like the younger guys for me. And so I would rather reach a little bit at this point in draft season in a sport where I don't think anybody has it figured out. Like I don't have it figured out yet either, but I think it's totally fine to be taking guys a little bit ahead of ADP if that's your guy. And like you said, especially in this draft with like, I'm not going to be able to get all the same guys at the same price that I've been getting them in these drafts with all you guys in here. Because I know that you guys, are plenty sharp, probably sharper than I. But see, like this is just such a gross area. Such a gross area. It is one thing. These like rookies and young guys in these uncertain situations, like Winky brought up Ice, Jonathan Isaac, like Scotty Barnes. Like I feel really confident these guys are good players, or at least like have the upside to be really good players. And so like if I miss on them, so what? I hopefully don't need their score anyway, but I would rather take shots on all those guys. Darius Baisley is a perfectly good example. Tyrese Maxey, awesome example. I really like Tyrese Maxey. But just take those guys. Don't take, because you feel like you want to have the certain role, the locked in role to start the year. Like in the 12th round, you don't need that role. You know what I mean? You want the young guy. And it doesn't have to be a young guy either, but you want the guy that can far exceed this draft cost, right? That can blow up and have a big season. I found that being the case on some of these teams, like specific teams. Like you see Gary Trent go here, even the Thunder too, with Dort. You see that being the case with specific teams, which is kind of interesting. Guys are not leaving very many guards for me here. One other interesting thing is when you get to like say the 16th round, I don't think you have to worry too much about structure unless you're like really, really, really weak at a position, right? If you take all wings and bigs for the first 6 or 7 rounds, then you might want to just continue to fire at guards. But that's something I found too when I get to like the last round, mainly like the last round, wherever I toss that 16th guy on, I don't think it really matters. You're just trying to find a guy that breaks out and has like you can actually use him this year. If he happens to be a wing and you're good at wing, I think that that's okay, right? We don't have to be that rigid. TJ Warren is really funny. His ADP is really, really funny. This draft is too sharp. You guys are passing on all these guys now. I should have said the opposite thing to you. Should have said the opposite. Let's see what guard's even looking like here. And there goes TJ Warren. Okay. Olynyk, big fan of Olynyk. Talked about Terrence Mann. Have Eric Bledsoe. So I kind of like, these little tiny correlations, right? Bledsoe and Mann, Dillon Brooks and Jaren Jackson. And it's not just like I want guys on the same team. It's not just that. But like if something happens to someone on a teammate of theirs, it's a big boost to both of those guys, right? If Paul George goes down, Bledsoe and Terrence Mann are undervalued. Or in the games that Paul George sits, those guys are undervalued. So I like when you're kind of splitting ties in these later rounds. That's something I really like to do. Here's another one that I love. Daniel Gafford. Love Daniel Gafford. That's a good question. I don't know that there's a great answer. I haven't done any research or anything like that, but I still think 3 guys from the same team is fine. If you even wanted to tell me 4, but the cost is like the big thing, right? If you take 3 guys from the same team in the first 6 or 7 rounds, I feel like that's a bit much because there still only is so much fantasy production to go around, even if like something happens to one of their teammates at that cost. But if you're attaching on a 3rd and a 4th guy from a team late, I think that's totally okay. I don't know what to do with TJ Warren, such high upside if he gets healthy, but yeah, I agree. I do agree. He's more likely to play. Definitely agree. Well, he's more likely to play than the struggle with Warren is that I'm not sure exactly how much upside there is. Right. So the team has Brogdon, LeVert, Sabonis, Miles Turner, TJ McConnell off the bench, right? Lamb, Holiday. That they're not lacking for bodies, and they're not lacking for productive bodies or high usage bodies. So I struggle a little bit. I don't mind taking that shot on a guy like TJ Warren if he turns out to be healthy and he's going to be a really productive, higher usage player. I struggle to see it a little bit with him on the Pacers, just given who else they have. Now, if they shake some things up, he comes back healthy and maybe they shake some things up, or maybe Miles Turner ends up not being healthy. There's obviously a ton of variables, but the path to TJ Warren big upside, I think, is a little bit tougher than maybe it previously was, in previous seasons. All right, on to the 14th round. And see, so this is where, I think, I have my four wings, obviously my 2 anchor wings with Giannis and Jalen. Upside bet on my guy, Scotty Barnes. Daniel Gafford is a guy I really like. Particularly, I think he's a center on DraftKings, but he's a wing on Underdog. And I know they brought in Montrezl Harrell and, Thomas Bryant will eventually be back. But I thought Gafford really showed well last year, and he's super productive fantasy-wise. Again, steals and blocks. That's his specialty. And I think he can be, again, it's the positional thing. Maybe he doesn't end up being, kind of their starting center and heavy minutes center, but he's really productive. And so he may not need, the 30+ minute role to come into play for you in terms of usable weeks. But also the upside is getting the starting center on the Wizards who could play big minutes at wing in the 13th round, 12th and 13th rounds of these drafts, I feel like is more than worth the risk. But I have 4 wings now, and it does kind of give me the flexibility. If I do want to toss on a 5th one in the 16th or something like that, if I think that he's the best available player, I think that that's okay. But if I also want to go 4 and just hammer what? That would be 9 guards. That would be 9 guards. I also think that that's okay because I'm pretty weak, right? I'm pretty weak at guard. DeJounte, I'm confident in, but after that, I love Jalen Suggs, but these other guys are not total smashes. I need somebody to step into a big role. Where it's like at center, at big, I'm good, and at my 2 wing spots, I'm good. So I just kind of need the shots on goal at guard, and those additional guards can end up being flex plays too, right? If they hit. I don't have a real take. If I were to take a shot on somebody would absolutely be Nick Claxton. And I think he's a reasonable later round big because, again, the Nets are not going to be struggling to win games. Griffin and Aldridge Aldridge just retired and unretired. Blake Griffin is on his last leg, and those guys are going to be sitting out a lot, even if they're fine and like playing ahead of Claxton. So I like Claxton. Like, he's not like a cooler play for me or anything like that, but as a late round big, I think he's a nice scoop if you need a late round big. So Malachi Flynn is definitely one of my guys this year. I think people are really like, if they had not gotten Goran Dragic, where would he be going with Lowry gone? Now I know Dragic is there, but like, he's older. We don't know exactly how good they're going to be. I think Flynn showed well last year. He showed really well in summer league. I think that there's like paths to huge season from Malachi Flynn. So he's definitely a priority target for me late in drafts. Let me double check wing really fast. Nope. Don't love it. So this is where I'm going to reach on another one of my guys, just stacking up these rookies. Right? Davion Mitchell. I don't even know exactly how fantasy productive he's going to be, but I feel pretty confident with his defense, he's going to get on the floor right away. And if things go south for them, they could trade Buddy Hield. They might trade Buddy Hield. He might just play over Buddy Hield. They've talked a little bit about playing the 3 guards together, Fox, Halliburton, and Mitchell, and that they feel okay doing that. And I just think Mitchell's defense is going to get him on the floor. And like, look, I'm not pretending to be, a great predictor of exactly how good each of these, top 10, top 20 rookies are going to be. But the Kings are a fantasy gold mine. Davion's going to help him play defense, but he's not going to make him a great defensive team. And again, if something happens to Fox, even if something happens to Halliburton, I think Mitchell can be a smash. And so I'm just looking to target. That's the kind of players I'm looking to target, right? These young dudes. Yeah, Millsap now too. The one thing I will say about Claxton is, he only fits certain types of roster constructions, right? Where you went like you have 2 stud bigs and you're just attaching a third kind of punt later, or maybe you didn't draft any early bigs and you need kind of some upside built in. Claxton could end up just being the guy there. I mean, he's better than Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge and Paul Millsap right now already, in my opinion. Especially now taking that next leap with another season under his belt. And then you just always have the thing of when the Nets rest guys, especially later in the year, like it's gonna happen. He's gonna have some big games. It's just they have so many dudes. He's probably not going to play a ton when everybody's playing, when everybody's healthy, or when everybody's active. So strong rumors, Dragic to Dallas. Oh, Brunson, that would be a good get for Toronto. Makes sense. I would not love a Brunson coming back for Malachi, but that's okay. I kind of feel like I would not give up Jalen Brunson I would not give up all that for Dragic, but that's just me. Jalen Brunson, I'm not even sure that Dragic is better than Jalen Brunson right now. Like, Brunson was a 6th man of the year candidate for most of the year. So that would be surprising to me. But NBA teams do surprising things all the time. Like, I don't know what the Pelicans are doing. Devontae Graham and Joe Val should have just kept Lonzo. I don't know why they didn't just keep Lonzo. Devontae Graham isn't even really a better shooter than Lonzo, even though everybody bashes Lonzo for the shooting. And he's inconsistent, but Devontae Graham is percentage-wise is not even a better shooter than Lonzo, and Lonzo is literally better at everything else. Thought that was a weird move. They traded a first-round pick for Devontae Graham. Weird stuff going on in New Orleans. I think they're panicking a little bit. They soured on Lonzo and they panicked with Joe Val and Graham. And like, they drafted Kira Lewis and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and then they get Devontae Graham, and then they're going to block him. I don't know. I don't get it. I think they should have been giving these young guys a shot. If you're going to let Lonzo go, what's the point of letting Lonzo go to not play to get Devontae Graham? I don't know. Weird stuff. But I mean, I will say Devontae Graham probably helps just spacing wise. You know, Lonzo, like, statistically, they're not different shooters. Actually, Lonzo has shot the ball better than Graham. But I think that the defenses fear Devontae Graham's shooting a little bit more. So, you know, something to be said, I guess, for that. I guess I should look and see who's available here. If you guys are scooping any of my late round guys, I like to. And there goes Claxton. Oops. Claxton is gone. Kira Lewis is gone. Oh, Matt. Precious is my guy. Okay, I guess I better figure out another pick here, huh? All my guards are gone. Ugly. This is ugly. I'm not excited. All right. I have not been taking very much Kuminga. And I'm not particularly excited for Kuminga, but I also think there's a path to a trade. There's a path to a trade. There's a path to him just ending up being good. Not super excited, but in the 16th round, again, I'm just betting on the young player upside and a little bit of uncertainty. I don't hate Otto Porter there also. But this was fun. Went, a little more fragile than I think like most people go, right? Let's riff raff. I like it. Fragile at the big spot, but take 4 of them and take some upside shots. I like it. Loaded at guard, so only take 5. That's beautiful, right? Oh man, you guys this is all more fragile teams than what normally happens. 5-6-5 is interesting, but again, it's weak at wing. I'm not sure there's a circumstance I would take 5 bigs. But it's not that bad. Anyway, point being, like, this was definitely a sharp draft. But like, this is what you see, right? Like 6-5-5. Again, punted off the big position. So like, I do get it. I do get it. But if I'm going to be fragile, I would rather take advantage of the big position. You know what I mean? But Ketchup Stain's good at this, so there's no hate. 862 with Cat and Bam. See, that's beautiful. That's fun. You guys are too good at this. This is a good team, Matt. But I do got to run. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to keep doing these. We're going to do multiple of these a week. I'm trying to get the schedule out. I got a lot of things I'm trying to get done here, so I appreciate your patience. NBA rankings and some content and stuff coming out a little bit later, and we're going to be doing multiple of these NBA best ball drafts a week. So be on the lookout for a content schedule coming out for everything. In-season NFL, NBA, NHL, and everything coming very, very soon. I'm working to polish that up as we speak. But thank you guys. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, John. I learned some too. You guys are schooling me. You guys are schooling me on all this. But a lot of fun. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the Discord, and I'll see you guys in these draft streets.